All right, welcome everybody. Very glad to be here. My name is Chuck Williams. I'm going to give everybody just a couple minutes to show up and see who's here. This is my first time using OBS and various streaming software, so forgive me if I have any technical issues, but this is all new for me. As far as running things, I do have a little bit of podcasting history. I've been on the Crypto Show. If you guys check that out, thecryptoshow.com. I've attended a number of the Digital Cash Rundown with Joel Valenzuela. If you guys look for that on Odyssey, that's just a bit of my streaming experience. But let me give it just a few minutes for people to show up. We have our a couple of founders here and in the chat who will be available to answer questions, so let me know if anybody's having any questions and just direct those. Hopefully you guys are hearing the audio okay. It looks pretty good on my side, but I just want to make sure you guys are hearing me okay. So just give me a thumbs up in the chat or anything if there are any issues. Alright, I'll give it just another minute or so, and then I'll dive in. Friday, happy Friday, everybody. Awesome. Alright, getting feedback that the audio sounds good. And so we've got a few viewers tuning in. That's great. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, well, I'll just go ahead and get started. For artifact purposes, we'll probably save this for future reference. This is my very first public appearance on behalf of MetaReset. MetaReset is a MetaReset is an organization that is planning to build a metaverse world. They're starting off with a 2D environment, and but also very soon, I think the September 30th is the target, but I don't know if that's shifted, for the MetaPeople NFTs, and that's going to be the focus of what I'm talking about today. My name is Chuck Williams. I am a 25-year veteran of software development. I've been in the cryptocurrency industry for about 7 years. Very big fan of Bitcoin and proof of work coins, many different kinds of cryptocurrencies and tokens. And I have a passion for this space. And the founders of MetaReset asked me to join them, and basically they told me that they align with my values and goals as a, let's say a voluntarist or freedom enthusiast. I'm a big fan of freedom. I'm a big fan of gaming. I'm a big fan of technology. And all of these things kind of come together in the MetaReset project. For me, this is a bit of a way to kind of dive into the world of NFTs, which is not entirely new to me. For those of you who know my history, I was previously employed as the Chief Experience Officer at Float.app. And that while I was there, we launched a series of Plank NFT tokens that are intended to enable utility on the Float platform. That's something that will probably come in the future, but today we're focusing on MetaReset. I just share that to let you guys know that I'm very much interested in NFTs, and when I first learned what they were and about the cryptocurrency space, I believe that NFTs are going to be one of the big ways to bridge the gap. And what I like about the MetaReset project in particular is that it's a game. It's a game that is intended not to be a life simulation, but an alternate lifestyle. And coming from the history of playing, role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, online and video role-playing games, I feel like this is going in that direction where you can build a character or an avatar or a meta person, as we might say in the MetaReset world, and acquire assets and even create families and breed your characters, and more on that in the future. But I'm very excited to dive into this realm, because I think that it's going to be an interesting foray into the world of NFTs and gaming and the virtual metaverse. By the way, I'm also writing a book on behalf of MetaReset. It's going to be an ebook that we are targeting to launch for sometime in Q4. And that's going to be basically a Metaverse 101. And so I'm doing a lot of research on the Metaverse. I have some history, of course, but I really want to make this, and the team, the founders of MetaReset, have agreed that we want to make this a 101 for the Metaverse and help people, bring people into the fold as to what the Metaverse is all about. So with the MetaReset NFTs, let's dive in. So this is an introduction to the MetaReset NFTs. And let me turn on the visibility here. I'll just shrink myself down, get myself out of the way so you guys can see the content here. So let's kick it off. Yes, again, my name is Chuck Williams. I'm presenting this. The team at MetaReset helped put this together, and I very much appreciate their contributions to everything that's going on here. I'm, again, very excited about these particular NFTs. I feel like there's an artisanal quality to them that will really make them stand out in the future. And I'll go into more details as we progress. So I've talked a little bit about MetaReset, but what I want to share about MetaReset in particular is I feel like there's a huge opportunity. And one of the things that MetaReset and myself align on is we agree that the user experience is paramount. In terms of the tokenomics, in terms of the experience, not only with the NFTs, but also with the experience of the gameplay, the virtual worlds that are being created, the value that's going to be exchanged, the reset token, all of these things are intended to provide an enjoyable experience in the metaverse and that world. And there is a focus on equality and a number of other principles that we want to make sure that when people engage in the MetaReset space, that they are free to live their sovereign lives in this world with only reasonable constraints that any game requires. If you follow Jane McGonigal, who is one of the experts in the fields of gaming, she has a number of rules for what makes a good game. And one of the primary principles of the rules of a game is that it must be voluntary. And you cannot have a game without rules. Without those two things, you really don't have a game. And of course, it needs to be fun. So those things are really what the experience, and those are not easy to create. And I very much admire the MetaReset team for taking on this challenge of providing a good experience and focusing on the user experience for all of this. It appears as though we are not progressing. Maybe I'm on the wrong screen. Hold on. try it again. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay. So let's progress this. So that's MetaReset. Okay, so MetaReset, a little bit more about MetaReset. 100% community driven. That's a lot of the experience that I was talking about. The token itself had a fair launch. There was a distributed token that is, if you look in the cryptocurrency space, there's definitions for what they call a fair launch, and MetaReset has met those criteria. Transactions that occur in the token space, there are 10% taxes on every single transaction, and those tokenomics provide a 5% of those, well, let's say half of those 10% taxes go to the development of the project, and the other half goes to the top 100 community members. And the details on how those top 100 community members are not entirely locked in at this point, but they're it has to do with the activity that you're doing in the space. There is a DAO that is under construction, let's say. There will be a steering board of select members from the community that will head up that DAO, and so in that way, the founders of MetaReset will be handing off much of the control and decision-making authority to essentially community members, and that's one of the things that we claim are making it 100% community-driven. The socially interactive platform is a big aspect of MetaReset. There's a lot to say about how social media in general has been affecting us, and at this point, a lot of it is negative in nature, in my opinion, because organizations like Facebook and Twitter have constructed experiences that are focused on keeping people's attention, distracting them away from their work or many other things, and keeping their eyes glued to those platforms. And that's not necessarily what we're about. But if you think back to the early days of Facebook and MySpace, why were people excited? Why did you get engaged in the social space? And I think back, there was an information revolution happening in addition to the internet. I was a very early internet user, and the Facebook and MySpace and many other social platforms, Twitter, were very innovative in their own ways. But what really made it happen was your friends were there, your family was there. There was a draw for you to get into this space because there was a social nature, and humans are social creatures, and that is the number one thing that drew people into those spaces. Your friends, your family, the connections that you could make, and finding like-minded individuals. And there's a common theme that's been happening in the social spaces where you're able to find your tribe based on your preferences, your ideals, your values, your goals, and those could be as base as virtue signaling, in various ways, to as advanced as activism and volunteerism in various spaces. With MetaReset, there's a Web 3.0 plus the metaverse plus the NFT and the NFT capacities. So with those three technologies, that social network is not only a financial revolution, but users will be excited to share financial activities like the assets they own, NFTs that they collect, tokens that they hold, domain names, and connections that they make. All of these can be associated with your meta person, which is an NFT, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But all of these things kind of come together in a way where now you have a tradable item in this 3D space that is aggregating all of the properties of this meta person, and the properties can be homes and land and 3D objects, associations with others, utility capabilities. There's a lot planned, and we're just starting with these NFT launches. Continue on. I'm going to check over here and see if we've got any questions. Hopefully Drifter and Professor are going there, and hopefully everything is going okay. Just want to double check. Nice. Okay. So looking at the stack of the meta world, there is not all of this is 100% in place yet, but we're very excited to kind of bring together the meta people, the meta assets, and the meta store under the umbrella of the meta world in the MetaReset project. It should, just to be clear, every single component of MetaReset will be an NFT. And for those of you who don't know, I'm assuming that everybody who's coming here knows that that NFT stands for non-fungible token, and a non-fungible token is a digital asset or a digitally signed piece of data that can be associated, that will be unique, but can be associated with your meta person. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more, but with the meta family and the meta people and all of the assets associated with your meta person NFT, all of these components become metaverse or metaverse compatible. Now, I would say that this is not the metaverse, but this is a world in the metaverse, and we'll go into that more with our book, which will be which is not yet titled, but is a metaverse focused book to teach people what is the metaverse, and we'll go into that more with that book. Moving forward, so the utilities. There was an article that one of the founders shared with me that I found extremely valuable, and we decided to include one of the core arguments or discussions of what makes an NFT. And they broke down the NFTs, or the world of NFTs, into 5 categories of utility function. And what we discovered or realized as we were reading this article is that the MetaPeople project, or the MetaReset NFT tokens, are actually intended to account for all of these identified versions of utility. So starting off with the identity NFT, you get a decentralized username, and every asset and all of your activities in the meta world are tied to this specific NFT. So you have a unique identifier that represents you. Now, you can own many different NFTs. You don't have to own just one. And this is, I say, very much like playing a character in role-playing games. For those of you out there who've played like something like Dungeons and Dragons or Rifts or GURPS or any of those role-playing games, those tabletop role-playing games like me, you often create different kinds of characters, and you want to imbue each of those characters with some of yourself or some aspect of yourself. Maybe not, though. Maybe you want that character to be something completely different or opposite than what you are or what you're used to, just to experience or consider that opportunity. One of the things that the founders and I have discussed is, maybe a person who identifies as a man or a male wants to play females. I've done that sort of thing in my role-playing games. Maybe a child wants to play an old person. Maybe an old person wants to play a child. These are the horizons. These are the opportunities that open up to you. And when we say identity in this space, it's an identity of your choosing, not an identity of your assignment, as it is in this world, where we get social security numbers and a first and last name, or a first name and a surname. These are the things that we choose, and we can modify them over time. And this is one of the interesting things that is a utility property of the MetaPerson NFT. Now, another one of these aspects of utility aspects that is actually kind of uncommon is the dynamism or the dynamic aspect of an NFT. Most NFTs that you purchase these days, it's a one and done. You get it, it's a picture, it's a graphic, it's a 3D animation, it's whatever it is, and it's kind of locked into that particular kind of version of NFT. That is what it is for all time. It doesn't change. These NFTs, if you have a beard, maybe if your NFT character, avatar, MetaPerson, as we say, if your MetaPerson has a beard, you can execute a transaction and get rid of the beard. You can execute a transaction and maybe change the hairstyle, change the clothing, change accessories, those sorts of things. Not everything will be changeable because, again, there are rules, and those rules are still being kind of crafted and worked out as to what you can and cannot change. But I've got to tell you, the discussions that we're having about those kinds of things are really exciting. And in my opinion, as a software developer who has managed designers, one of the things I've learned over my couple of decades in building software is that designers and graphic artists and artists of all kinds are challenged when there's just a blank slate, and the more creativity can actually come through when you have constraints. And so that's why the rules of a game are extremely important, because those represent the constraints. Those are the walls that create the borders of the playground. Once you understand the boundaries, now you can play inside, and that makes designers more creative, that makes the game more fun, and that enables people to, understand how things work and surprise one another with some of the creativity that they can do within those constraints. The dynamic aspect of this particular token, I think, is going to be a unique aspect that will allow us to change and add things over time. I anticipate many different kinds of things that can be written into these NFT contracts. Maybe we could do aging. We certainly are planning on doing, breeding and mating and marriages and those sorts of things, and I'll get into a little bit more of that later. And so there will be on-chain changes that you can do with outfits, accessories, and other things to update your NFT's appearance, which I love. Now, another one of the utility aspects of the MetaReset NFTs, or the MetaPeople or MetaPerson, is access. You use your MetaPerson to access the world. The meta world and other ecosystem products are only accessible with a MetaPerson NFT or MetaPeople NFTs. That basically means that who's in and who's out. There's no way to necessarily participate. At least we're not designing it this way. You can't participate unless you are in the game. And if you're a fan of Nassim Nicholas Taleb, there's a book that he's written called Skin in the Game. Basically, that everybody who's playing the game has skin in the game, and that aspect of not only ownership but risk. There is an item here that I may or may not want to improve the value. If I buy the thing, that alone incentivizes, that ownership incentivizes that you want to improve it. And knowing that everybody in the meta world, the MetaReset world, has bought in with their NFT, everybody has skin in the game, and that creates a very kind of safe boundary, so that that everybody who's in there has skin in the game. I mean, in that way, it's very much like the real world. Nobody wants to risk the threat to their own bodies, so they do certain things, like they feed the body and they protect and clothe the body. At least those who are socialized enough to, protect and be modest with themselves. So this access is something that I think is very key and very important, but also very common. I think most NFTs, maybe not most, but a large portion of NFTs will just be access. You can now access this thing, or you can do this thing on this system. Now another utility that's available on this is the actions that you take in the meta world. The engagement utility is basically activities and other things that you do, and they're going to be measured by the system. If you conduct a marriage, every login, every interaction that you make in the meta person world or the MetaPeople world is going to be an opportunity for us to measure that engagement. And this is one of the ways that we measure who are our top 100 community members. If you just log in every day, you'll get a certain number of points. If you log in and then engage with your meta person a certain way, maybe you change the clothes, maybe you conduct some kind of regular activity, maybe you feed your character, who knows. But there's a lot of opportunities to measure that engagement and provide utility in the way that we have planned for what is essentially a universal basic income. So as long as you're logging in and doing a certain number of things, there will be a dollar amount an equivalent dollar amount, I believe, is the goal for a universal basic income to be issued to those who are participating. There will be a maximum amount that everybody can receive. So that's kind of exciting, and I think there are a number of projects that are thinking in this direction, but this is one of the first projects that I've seen that's really has a solid plan for not only monitoring engagement for the purposes of the system to see the health of the system and its engagement among its users, but also rewarding those who are engaged. And this is a common theme, but I think this is an interesting way to go about it. So I'm excited to see how this is going to play out. Now, and then finally, one of the utilities is assets, and all of the assets, the meta assets in land, houses, cars, and those sorts of things. They're going to be associated with your meta person NFT, the specific NFT that conducted those actions. And as you acquire those land and other meta assets, the value of that particular NFT should be expected to increase, because they could be unique items, they could be scarce items, they are expected to be those things, and that's going to add richness and flavor to your specific NFT. So I'm really excited to see that the MetaReset tokens and the NFT platform is touching on all of these identified utilities for the MetaReset project. So now we'll dive into a little bit more about the UBI. MetaPeople will get a UBI monthly, and they'll be delivered in reset tokens, which is currently available if you guys want to check that out. I don't know what the current price is, but there are, I think the market cap last I checked was somewhere between 900,000 and a little over $1 million for all of the tokens that are out there, of course. But the intent of the founders is to deliver a universal basic income in reset tokens to everybody who engages in the meta space, in the MetaReset project. The meta world is a 2D initially. Will be the meta world 2D is a Web3 social network platform. So we're starting with a 2D platform and based in Web3. And I'm not going to dive into what is 2D and what is Web3. I'm just going to assume that you guys know what that is. But it's going to be a 2D Web3 social network platform. And that's going to, the users can then earn 100 live to earn points every month. And we can talk about game theory and those kinds of things to understand how those points are rewarded, but I've already talked a little bit about the logging in and those sorts of things. For instance, just logging in will be 1 point per day. Some of the other plans will have prorated UBI payments. So 100 points would result in 100% of your available UBI. So if you did all of the things that had been defined, you would get your 100 points, and then 100% of the available or possible UBI that could be assigned to your meta person would be 100%. You would receive 100% of that available UBI. Now, if you received 30 points, maybe you just logged in every day one time and got 1 point per day, and that's all that you did, then you'd get 30% of your potential payment. It is the idea and goal that live to earn points would be easy to earn. So we do want to make these available for everybody. We don't want to make them difficult, but we do want to get engagement, right? And incentivize that engagement. And I think this is an interesting way to just kind of go ahead and do that. Oh, here we go. So maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm reading my notes. So now let's get into the meta family. Here, I'm just going to go back just to make sure that we see this. 100 basic monthly live to earn points should be earned to receive 100% UBI, if not prorated. And if you don't understand the prorating, so they're going to be paid out monthly. If you log in half the month, then you would only get 50%, or if you do all of the things. So now the meta family, this is an interesting aspect. If you are familiar with CryptoKitties, you know that you can take one CryptoKitty and another CryptoKitty and breed them together and have some of the unique attributes from both in your new NFT. It's the same kind of concept here, but with the added aspect that this is a 3D world, eventually starting in 2D. So the expectation is that as a social network platform, you will be engaging, your meta person will be engaging with other meta persons or meta people, and create relationships of various kinds. And some of those relationships may develop into, hey, let's marry our NFTs, let's marry our meta persons so that we can create a meta family. And that's where we get into the ideas of the meta family. Of course, this will be 100% consensual, right, on both parties. Once both parties agree that they want to produce a child NFT, then they may contribute and pay the gas fees to produce child NFTs. Now, the child NFTs will sit in kind of a holding pattern for 18 days. Let's call it a meta gestation period where you're not able to access them. So it will be 18 days to mature into an adult NFTs. You'll get some of the DNA traits from both of the parents, and those child NFTs can be sold with both parents' consent. So just keep that in mind. Both parents must consent to essentially all of the actions regarding the NFTs right up until the moment that they become under the control of somebody else. And I'm again getting ahead of myself with my notes. So now then the next stage, once you get past the meta family, or in addition, we're going to talk a little bit more about the meta assets: land, houses, cars, clothing, outfits, accessories. Who knows? I mean, I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for the economy of the meta space to create these kinds of things. But the presumption right now is that you will need all of those who produce assets or produce objects. They'll need to be associated with a meta person NFT. So they will be, and once they're associated with a particular meta person, they're transferable, and all of these kinds of things will be associated to one particular NFT. So you could, as a as a meta person, buy many of these kinds of assets, outfits, accessories, lands, houses, cars, those sorts of things. And in addition, create social relationships. There could be marriages. Marriage is plural. We have it here, yes. But that's up to you. We're not going to get into the judgment, but if you want to, we're not restricting any NFTs to just have one. Just to be clear, at least that's the plan for now. Children, friends, connections, social groups, how those get represented and associated to the NFT will all be there. Again, your activities tracked, the engagements tracked, and those create a history, a blockchain history that's all associated with that one NFT. So that 0.1 worth of NFT could eventually be valued at 10 or 100 times as much based on the life that you've built. And this gives you a lot of opportunities to brag about your network or virtue signal if you want to. But what we intend is that the visibility within the interface is for these kinds of things will be something that you can opt into. You won't have to show the complete value of your NFT within our interface. Now, if you're super geeky, because these are blockchain transactions, somebody might be able to go through the blockchain transactions and make an estimate as to the value and all of the associated history of your particular thing. But we anticipate that most people will be using the interface, so we're going to give you controls as to whether or not that's public within the interface. When you sell your NFT, all assets, your meta person, all assets associated with your meta person, all the connections, and the entire life will be sold along with it. No orphans here. We won't be able to leave them no assets or parts or will be or unsold children, let's say, will be left hanging without the associated NFT. It all goes in one package. So if you personally buy around 10 NFTs and build unique lifestyles for each of them, this kind of incentivizes a lot of different kinds of engagement that can create a gamified, socially interactive metaverse that's really powered by real money. And we say real money. A lot of people in my world, and I'm assuming anybody who's here today listening to this, real money, cryptocurrency counts as real money. I think that debate is probably over for most of us here. I want to thank everybody. I think this has just been a MetaReset MetaPerson introduction. This is again my kind of first foray using some of the streaming software and a lot of the technologies here. So forgive me if it's been a little scratchy, and hopefully the audio and video experience has been good for you. I appreciate everybody's time. We've got, I'm going to say about 15-20 minutes if anybody wants to ask any questions. Otherwise, I'll wrap it up here. I'm going to check the stream here, see if we've got any questions that might come up. I see some people are asking about security solutions. Yep, smart contract. So if you're not reading the stream, there was a question about security solutions. We're going to Professor's one of the founders. Every smart contract, he says, every smart contract we build in the meta world will be carefully cyber audited, and you, the community, will also have a participation in this process, bringing if there are any bugs after the beta release. Now, it should be known. I mean, again, these are written to the blockchain, so you're getting the security of the blockchain transactions themselves. So that's already a very high bar for security, in my opinion. Here's another question from Sravan. Is there any limit for the population of meta people? Like, maybe he means Adam. Adam and Eve are a family of 50,000 and many more to come. But what will be the population? The final population? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I think that we're theorizing that there shouldn't really be a limit. And in my opinion, handling millions of NFTs with potentially thousands of transactions each, it can definitely be a challenge. But these are not insurmountable challenges. So we'll see how that plays out. But Drifter says, initially there will be a limited number of NFTs. And I think this is a good idea, to not only for the purposes of scarcity and keeping the value of those NFTs up, but also, just from a technical standpoint, we want to probably limit the number that can be issued so that we can, slowly scale up and make sure that things are under control as we move forward. Another question from Fable. What are your expectations for MetaReset? That's a big question. Drifter answers, I don't know if it's an answer to that question. Somebody asked about, here's another question. Dell asks about how will UBI support the reset value? Good question. So Drifter says the UBI will be adjusted from the already allocated tax percentage. Also, UBI attracts user engagement and adoption, which will help in adding value to the entire project. Now, I will say, as a software developer, for sure, adoption is key. That's the number one thing. You definitely want to get adoption. And I think that UBI is an interesting incentive to gain that kind of adoption. I also think it's valuable that the NFTs have many aspects, many facets of utility value, because people come from different walks of life. Some people just want to collect, some people want to build, some people want to observe and virtue signal. So there's a lot of different aspects that can be leveraged here to bring the value. And I think the UBI is an interesting added value to the world of NFTs. Okay, so that looks like Drifter responded to another one of Dell's questions. Anyone can start their digital NFT based business and launch into Meta World. For example, you can start your own automobile brand by designing car NFTs and sell it all on the Meta World. And this is kind of what I was referring to earlier, in that you'll need to have an NFT presence. You'll need to have a meta person in order to participate in the Meta World and produce objects in the world. There is some discussion as to how perhaps certain people may gain access to produce, specific brands or of objects, or assets of certain flavors, or real estate or land and those sorts of things. But a lot of that is intended to be carefully structured in a way where the access portion of the NFT is always a requirement in order to produce anything that may exist in the meta world. Yeah, Dell, I agree. This can be very huge. Now, there are a lot of metaverse projects, and I just want to reality check for a minute. There are a lot of metaverse projects out there, and there's a lot of cryptocurrency projects. There's a lot of NFT projects, and there's so many now that the uniqueness of them, it can be hard to discern what the difference between one from the next is. I have found that it's so much better to go deep than wide when looking at these kinds of things. Now, if you're just coming at it from a financial perspective, you want to spread your bets in this space, because this is already a high-risk space and you don't know what's going to blow up. But if you're coming at it from a builder's perspective, like I do, you don't have time to be researching and digging into all the technical capacities and capabilities of all of the different kinds of projects. What I like about the MetaPeople and MetaReset project is they are taking a principled approach that completely aligns with the approaches that I think make successful software, which is focusing on the user experience, focusing on adoption, and tailoring all of the technology layers specifically to deliver on those values that have been identified. And that's why we talked a little bit about and went into detail about the utility aspects of these NFTs, because the NFT is the gateway to everything in the meta world. Having it fulfill all 5 aspects of the utility function makes it so that it's very much more likely to succeed, and enables horizons and opportunities of development, implementation, tokenomics, social interactions that other NFTs may not have. You can't. There's nothing social you can do with an ape NFT. Sorry to say, other than virtue signal that you own it. And there. And many other token projects where they claim that they're going to have NFT. Well, that's the problem. They're going to have it, and honestly, that is the case here. It's under development, but the development is being driven by what the users want, by what people want to see. So, very excited about all that. Okay, looks like we're kind of dying down in the chat. I'm going to give it just another minute or so here. I really appreciate everybody's time. This has been enjoyable for me. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. Feel free to drop a note, send me a message, tweet me, ChuckWilliams37. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything that you'd like me to dig into for the next presentation. But I'll give it another minute here before we drop off. Yeah. So Dell is asking, saying, maybe it's a question. Also, IP, intellectual property, is a huge part of NFTs, ? Will holders own the IP of their meta, and how will IP factor into the meta world, especially when partnering with brands? Yeah, we'll see what Drifter says on this. All right. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there, but that's an interesting conversation. I as a software developer, I've spent a lot of time understanding intellectual property and things like that, and selecting libraries that are open source and non-proprietary, so that we don't run into IP issues when I've delivered software for my clients. There's a lot to say about intellectual property. I happen to be a patented developer, and that whole world of patenting and intellectual property, it's there's good and bad about it, and I think that we'll come up with some I think very fair solutions, because the MetaReset world is not about control and stealing data from people or collecting those kinds of things. No, I think what we want to do is provide an environment that is enjoyable, fun, and engaging for all of its users. So we'll see. I know that we don't want to be overly restrictive with that stuff. So. All right, well, thank everybody for their time. I thank you once again. This has been, as I said, lots of fun. And until next time, all value is belief.